Welcome, welcome. I am Almedia Exum here with the Anarkist. We are reviewing Lovecraft Country, episode 9. How did we get here? Episode 9 is called Rewind 1921. Wow, the Anarchist, just overall, what were you like? What was your overall reaction to this episode? And we'll dive into exactly what happens. But what did you think with this episode?
All right. Spoiler alert, everyone. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Obviously, we're gonna we haven't really done that, but hopefully we'll be putting that on the title. But this particular episode, the ninth episode, which of course we get one more, as you said, it wraps up at 10. This episode, Rewind 1921, was, I would say, very interesting. It was more than anything interesting to me. If I was to rate it, I would say it was an okay episode. I know I've had my
Yeah.
critiques of this particular series, Lovecraft Country, and there's been episodes that I really like. Of course, we talk about the first episode, and I
And
think
you
me and
like
you
two?
share. I like two as well, and I think me and you share a love for was that episode 7?
Yeah, the I am
The
that I
I am
am that
episode.
I am.
Yeah, so those were some pretty good episodes, and to me, in my opinion, there've been some duds, and this one I would say kind of falls on the cusp, a little bit in between, because I do like the content that we touch on in this episode. I do like how we are tying up a lot of the loose ends and really seeing where this thing is going. What else do I enjoy? I enjoy, this was a very, I think, a powerful episode. Of course, we're talking about Tulsa and what
Tulsa.
was happening then. And of course, if we just, obviously, we're going to get into the greater picture of the story and what actually is going on with the characters, Atticus, Letitia. We see a lot more of Diana, which we saw in the 8th episode that surrounded her. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. If I were to rate it, I would just say it was okay, but it was, I thought, extremely powerful. But of course, I have my critiques. We're going to get into that. But what did you think of it?
Wow. So I had high hopes for this episode because, I saw a preview trailer. You know how they do the previews for the next week, and it said that it was gonna have something to do with Tulsa. So I was excited to see how they, connected things to Tulsa. And just overall, I was shocked, but there were times in the episode where I was like, you guys can do better than that with the writing, or not with necessarily the writing, but the overall narrative. I was like, we could definitely see more of Tulsa. We're in Tulsa, but I feel like there could be more done. There's a lot of things that I do like what happens to Hippolyta at the end with her hair and how it kind of ties into, Dee's book. I mean, her comic book story, and we'll dive into all of that. But I was shocked, a little surprised, but at points in the story, in the episode, I was honestly just somewhat disappointed. But I am all here for it. Things do kind of connect. We start to learn a little bit more. We have one episode left. They have one episode after this episode to make it all make sense. Make it all make sense. Okay. So let's just start off the anarchist. And let's see here. So in the beginning of episode 9, which is Rewind 1920-21. So the first thing we see is Dee. Dee is basically dying. She's dying. They put a curse on her, and she's kind of. It looks like she has I don't know if she's turning into one of those girl monsters, but she's basically just her skin is withering away and stuff. And so they decide to go to Christina. Really, Ruby decides hey, she's gonna help me because everyone's out of options. What leverage? They didn't really have any leverage for Christina because Leti gave away um Titus's pages, so that was the only leverage they had. And so Ruby, who still has feelings for Christina for who knows why, says, "Oh, she'll help for me, right?" And I don't know, that whole scene, I was just oh, really, and I don't know. And also, I just felt like it was a lot of unnecessary cursing. I don't know, everyone was saying the F word and just different cursing. I'm like, seems like you guys are. I know it's a dire situation because Dee is dying, but I just kind of was like, okay, what? Okay, we're gonna go off of Ruby, and then Ruby, she's following Christine. I didn't like all that, but hey, that's where the story was going, so I'm here for it to figure out how we get to Tulsa. What happens is, Christina makes a deal to heal Dee. She says, which I don't believe. She says she can only temporarily heal her, and that the curse and the what's happening to her body will return. So they have to go back in time to Tulsa to get the Book of Names before it was burned when they did the Tulsa massacre in 1921. So that's what they decided to do. They decide to let Christina temporarily heal her with one condition, that Atticus willingly comes to the the autumn equinox, basically, willingly to basically be sacrificed for Christina. And so he agrees to save in order to save Dee. What do you think about that so far?
It was very interesting. Of course, like you said, we start off with Dee Diana, the youngest of the characters. Very, very good actress, really good actress. And
Yes,
I
yes,
didn't
she
say,
is.
but I thought she did a good job in the last episode as well. That's centered around her, and I know I had my critiques about it, but I thought that young actress did really well, and I want to see her in more stuff in the future. But
Yes, me
like
too.
you said, she's dying slash turning into the monsters that were chasing her based on, them scratching her up and getting to her. So we see her transforming, and everybody's trying to figure out, obviously with Hippolyta still gone. I mean, we do see her come back in this episode. I think in like almost smack dab in the middle of it. So before then, Montrose, Atticus, and Letitia and Ruby are just looking like, we trying to get this girl back. Like, so how do we do this? Like you said, someone brings up, let's help or let's ask Christina, and then we find out that Atticus thinks he has leverage with the Titus's pages, but really
Yeah.
Letitia already gave it to Christina, looking for
That's why
a
people have
protect.
to be on code, like you got to be on code. You can't be giving away stuff that's leverage for something else later. But anyway,
Right, but we found out she was trying to get a protection spell for Atticus, but
yep.
knowing Christina, her entire drive is to sacrifice Atticus in this autonomous equinox, what is coming up, and so she manipulates her into saying, "Oh, I won't do it for him, but I'll do it for you." And Letitia, knowing that she's pregnant, like, "Well, all right, I'll go for that," and gets the little spell or whatever. So, which is kind of lead more and more Atticus to this fate. And we also remember that he traveled in the time machine as well. We don't actually know what he saw when he went into the time machine because that episode focused on Hippolyta, but we do know that he went to the time machine and he came back with a book which we found out was written by his son and which talked about what was going on that he was going through. So anyway, get in there. Like I said, which part did you want to talk about, or which part did you want
Well,
to
I'll just continue. So we find out that Christina, she agrees to help Dee by doing the curse, or I mean, it's by
Oh, yeah, I
temporarily.
wanted to mention that was,
Uh-huh.
I guess she called that I guess just trying to
A
understand the
spell.
dialogue. There was supposed to be some sort of restoration spell. So she said,
Mm-hmm.
it will restore her, but she would ultimately die unless a family member, her closest, and they made it specifically her closest relative, gave blood or whatever, which originally we thought was Montrose, or originally they thought was Montrose, but of course we know that there are some contingencies there because he is not
Atticus
actually,
could be her brother,
right,
basically.
which will make him
Wow.
the close, exactly. So that would make him the closest relative until Hippolyta came back. So Hippolyta does come back. They do a ritual. They restore D, and basically Atticus has to go along with this ritual.
And you know
So
what? Go ahead.
mhm. No, you can go.
I was gonna say, you know what? I don't believe Christina because we find out later, like they're like, well, we can't get Chief Lancaster to do it because we killed him. She's like, oh, you killed him? Why? And we found out later, like this dude isn't even dead. She goes to his office, and that's the next thing I want to talk about. And just jumping around, but do you have something to say before I get to that?
Mm-mm.
So I thought it was very interesting, and I know the brilliant guy that you are, you'll be able to talk about this. But Chief Lancaster is cursed. He's dying. I think because he was bit by one of those monster thingies or something, or it could have been that cursed rock that Christina got Ruby to put in his office. I don't know, but whatever it is, he is dying. He is cursed. He keeps killing and he keeps stealing and killing black bodies and trying to put them on his body to stay alive, and it doesn't work. I thought that was interesting because there's a whole thing going on with black bodies showing up missing and the black market with like organ donating and stealing organs, and just overall what's going on with black bodies in this country. Like the idea of the black body being the most powerful, the one that can endure anything. And you see Chief Lancaster, he's dying and they keep stealing black bodies. And one of his police officers was like, look, I don't know how many more bodies we can steal. We can't get away with this. It's too obvious at this point, trying to keep him alive. And then he later succumbs to his wounds because Christina, who's pretending to be William, basically shows up and says something, and it looks like Lancaster dies. I just thought that whole thing was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting as well, because as you look at that, and you kind of had to, for me it was a little gross, but if you really look closely, I think it was because, remember, in the battle, or when the police force actually opened fire on Letitia's house, which of course we know she had the invulnerability spell, so she couldn't be hurt, but they opened fire on her house. That's when Atticus came through, and the spell that they did worked, where a Lovecraftian monster came out and helped them out, and basically tore all these police officers apart. I believe Lancaster was a police officer that actually got his arm bitten off and like his whole side bitten off. So you could see when Christina, aka William, going into the office, they actually are trying to stitch up a black man's arm and torso and chest, I think, onto
Yeah, it was
Lancaster.
definitely the torso, because it kept gushing with blood. It kept like holes where it was holes in the middle of it, and it just kept gushing out blood, as if like the body was not accepting the new host or whatever, which is gross. But I was just like, why wouldn't it accept the new host unless he's cursed? Why do you think it wasn't accepting him as a host? Because the monsters, remember when the other monsters was eating each other, they were turning into the vampire creatures. I don't know if it's the same monsters, and she controls these monsters. So I don't know if it's because it's one of her monsters that it kills him. What do you think?
I don't know. I honestly, I personally didn't read as deep into it. I just felt like when I saw the scene, it just seemed like, obviously Lancaster works with the person who previously owned Letitia's house, the dude Hiram Epstein, which I've said before. Hiram is the name that most Freemasonic lodges basically teach the myth to all, every member about Hiram Habib. So this man is named Hiram Epstein. And, obviously in the story, Hiram Epstein was a quack nut surgeon who was in the Masonic Lodge and who experimented on people, mostly black people. And we saw that episode before, but so it just seemed like, to me, I didn't really know anything about the curses that was along with it. Maybe that curse had something to do with his bad luck and him getting in that situation. But to me, it just seemed like, because they were just people who obviously weren't medical doctors or the best people, trying to stitch him up with other people's body parts, that wasn't playing right for him, So,
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I just thought that was very interesting. Now, piggybacking, so what happens is, before that scene, we see something happen. We see Hippolyta returns out of nowhere. I'm like, what? Like, literally, I was talking out loud. Like, where you come from? The portal closed. Girl, where you come from? And I was saying this out loud because I'm like, how did she get back to this universe? We find out that she spent over 200 years in these different, what she calls multiverses, which I know you're probably familiar with. And she tells them this very confidently. Like, I've gained infinite wisdom. I've spent over 200 years in multiverses. Now, what is the difference between like a multiverse and like what am I trying to say? Like, versus just like one reality? Because a universe, a multiverse, like, what does she mean when she says she had spent over 200 years in a multiverse?
Well, I think basically when Hippolyta came back, I ain't gonna lie, I was excited too. One thing I will say about that scene, I was glad that she was back, because you just got that feeling like, whoo, mama home, finally, she gonna know what to do. Because everybody else just bumbling around like idiots. But anyway, so she comes back and she explains to them, I have basically infinite wisdom. I'm better than all y'all. I'm smarter than all y'all. Get out my way. You know what I'm saying? I'm the black woman. Hear me roar type stuff. But anyway, basically the whole concept of the multiverse is, just basically physical, metaphysical, quantum physical, science, just stuff. Obviously, we live in what's known to most people as what's called a universe. So, which the word uni would denote one. You know what I'm saying? The universe. And there are some scientists high up in physics that say this is actually not a universe, it's a multiverse. Meaning, it's not just one, it's probably it's the reality, but multiple realities, you know.
So
So
parallel realities or no?
parallel realities, parallel universes. There could be like, for instance, there's a theory going around there. It actually released earlier this year. What was interesting is that they supposedly NASA went up to Antarctica and found that this exact reality is existing, but in another reality going backwards. Now I'm not sure how this is a real, you can look that up. I remember hearing that, and they actually, on some podcasts I like to listen to, they even reported that. So I'm just like, I wonder where they're going with this, because I don't trust NASA, NASA.
Shout out to
Never a
my
straight answer.
sister, Lamedia
Oh,
Exum, for tuning in. Thanks. Hi, sis. Love you. I'm listening to you, though.
all
That
right.
was a
Peace,
nice
Media.
surprise.
Yeah. Popped in on sis. But yeah, so
Mhm.
so the whole concept of the multiverse is just is that it's not just one universe. There are multiple realities, which Hippolyta said she came from. She actually said she came from some planet. I don't remember what it was, like Earth and some numbers next to it, where she was able to
Earth
experience
2.5, right? Or something like that. I'm like, wait, like, what
something
does
like
that
that.
mean?
I'm not something
Yeah.
like that. I'm not sure if that's the one, but obviously she was on this particular. She was in this reality where she could experience and understand, different experiences on Earth. So that's why she came back with wisdom. She knew exactly what to do. What I thought was interesting is when they went to the observatory, and this
Yes.
wasn't me. I saw a review who pointed this out. The first time they went to the observatory, it was supposed to be some place called Mayfield. It was said it in big in Mayfield. When they went back, it said Kentucky. So the person who
Yeah,
reviewed it
I did
said,
say Kentucky this time. It was somewhere else before. Okay.
but they were supposed to go back to the same observatory. So he put in a theory that maybe when they came back into another reality. You see what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
unless, or if not, then that would just been a really, really, really bad mistake that was made. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because we obviously,
Came
you can't
back.
just say they was in Mayfield one time and then it's in Kentucky, unless I just don't know where Mayfield is.
Hmm.
But
Lamedia
MCU
says
universe, multiverse. Yeah, they talk about it in the MCU
MCU.
universe as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Good
So yeah,
catch,
everybody
Lamedia.
understand that concept now, where there could be obviously another reality going on where you're a different person living a different life, doing this, doing that, something else going on. So yeah. So
Mm. Yeah, I didn't even I didn't pick that one up at all. I just thought it was interesting that when she did talk about, the the time machine, I'm like, wait, they don't have the key. How you gonna like open this up? And then she shows us her wrist and says she has like a magical technology key, not just
mm,
her wrist, but she has a technology key that can open up anything. I'm like, what? So explain yourself. How you get this? Like, what I feel like this episode very sped up a lot of things. Like, instead of like breaking down everything, it was just like, okay, we're gonna explain this in 2 sentences and move on. Like, so she said she had this key. This can plug into any key or whatever in the universe. I don't know. And then she said they needed like a power source, a motherboard, and they were like, where we gonna get a motherboard at? I'm the motherboard. And I thought that was like symbolic because we as Black women, the rest. Like we are powering like so much of like we're like a motherboard. Like we power so much of what's going on. Like, so I just thought that was kind of interesting how confident she was. Like she was so confident. Like, I'm so happy she came back. I feel like more needs to be said. Like, if she didn't come through the time machine, because she still has to travel with them to get to the time machine. And if she has infinite knowledge, she has this technology, why does she have to like drive? And this is just me thinking about extra stuff. Why did they have to drive there? Why couldn't she use like technology, like teleport them there? And also like explain to us how you got back in this reality. Like, what portal did you come through? Because if you came through a portal, wouldn't it have been easier than spending 4 hours to repair the time machine? Like, how did you get here? I don't know. But maybe they had to travel back to, of course, they had to travel back to 1921 in this reality, because she says there's hundreds of thousands of different realities and universes, and she has to put all the stuff in right away. I mean, a certain way. So I guess that's why, because I'm like, otherwise it doesn't make sense, like how you came back through a portal, they got you here, and now you're going to 1921 and you can't take us through however you got here, we can't go that way. So you have to use this time machine. I was just a little confused. I felt like we needed more time to just really enjoy Hippolyta and explain herself, like how you got back here. So I just thought that was interesting. And from there, anything you want to say about that before I go in?
yeah, I just want I have a few points. That I ain't gonna lie, that is one of the things that you get into as a writer, very gray area when you're talking about time travel. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that so it's hard to keep continuity or hard to keep, well, if you can do this, why can't you do that? You know what I'm saying? But to my understanding,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we broke down in the well, not in the last episode, but in the I Am episode at least, that she was in space. I mean, not in space, but she was astral traveling. She astral traveled to these different worlds, and that's how she was in my mind, the way I figured when she got to Earth, it was a free for all. She can't just season 2 answers. Not sure
Well,
what she means on that.
yeah, I don't know about season 2. We just trying to figure out episode 9, and we're gonna try to figure out episode 10, and then we'll see if there's a season 2. But hopefully they answer everything, Almedia, before season 2, because right now we just need things to make sense. Because right now, and things are kind of coming together in this episode. But hopefully they answer things before season 2. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So as far as the writing, like I said, that's why I say you have to be real tight, especially when you're dealing with metaphysics and especially when you're talking about different realities and time travel. But it was just to comment on the whole motherboard thing. Of course, yeah, the black woman, and that was obviously metaphorical, metaphysical, but her just understanding energy and the fact that black women are one of the biggest sources of energy. You have a lot of black women right now raising their kids right now. Just think of
Mm-hmm.
energy in that way. The energy, the energy that a person has to take to raise kids, to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they eating well, to make sure that they
Yeah.
minds are well. That's
Yeah.
the
That they're
energy. But
building up their minds strongly, like, go ahead.
yeah. So
I'm cutting you off.
that's of course energy in another way. But obviously she needs this energy as she put together this time machine. Time machine, very smart black woman, puts it together.
Yes.
Uses herself as the conduit, as the energy source to use it, which I didn't even realize she had to use it. She had to basically be that the entire time to keep that portal open so they can get there, do what they had to
Oh
do, and
my
get back.
goodness. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize that either. I didn't realize that either. Once they were having like a glitch towards the end, and she was just like, it looked like she was dying over there. She was like, "Oh, I can't hold on any longer." I'm like, this woman is foaming at the mouth. She's been holding on this whole time. They should have sped up. They should have sped up like their time there, because she was over here just holding it down for them.
hmm So what's interesting is they obviously Atticus, Montrose, and Tisha, who is pregnant with Atticus's child, they go back in time to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921 in order to get the original book of names before it's burnt up in a fire in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So what's
Mm-hmm.
interesting is the Tulsa riots, so the Tulsa bombing, that's what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma is a real thing. I understand. I never seen the Watchmen TV series. I did see the Watchmen movie, which I don't think those two really have
Yeah,
anything to do with each other. But
they
people
don't.
talk
Not that I know of.
when I hear people talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma today, which they never talked about when I found out about this a few years ago. A lot of people tell me that they thought it wasn't real based on they thought it was made up in the movie The Watch or in the TV show The Watchmen. But that in fact was a real thing. In 1921, the city of Tulsa, the black part of the city was actually rioted. White racists, white supremacists ran through, shooting people, killing people, and were deputized by the city, by the state, by the government, because the government went then and bombed through actual bombs, air bombs from the air in Tulsa, which is actually the very first time that the U.S. government was bombed by anyone. But obviously, it was the U.S. government bombing black homes in this black town, Tulsa, Oklahoma. So in 1921, this really happened. So they go back to this time, which the most interesting thing to me to start this particular period in the series or in the episode was when they went there. The first thing that they said was, "We have to blend in," and the way that they blended in was basically wearing these real snazzy, sharp suits, look like real designer
Yeah.
suits, these really
Yep,
beautiful,
and a
nice
dress.
dresses. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's
I
what I
love
thought.
that.
Yeah, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in that particular black city in 1921. I know a lot of people like to think in 1921 black people was, oh, whoa, it's me and I hope Mastodon and I hope this shit. No, in order to fit in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, you had to be dressed to the T. Even though Letitia, she still had to have the sneaks on. You know what I'm saying? She still had the running shoes or the tennis shoes on. She couldn't find shoes back then, which kind of gave her up a little bit to the family members later we'll talk about. But in order for these black folks to fit into this city, they actually had to dress up. So that lets
Yeah.
you know, and in that time, there were Black people who were business owners, Black people who were doctors, lawyers, everything. Black people who, you know, really had a lot, you know. So I'll let you kind of chime in on that, Almedia.
Okay. Oh, yeah, said, hey, yeah, said Ephi says, I was just going to say, talk about the bombs. Yeah. That was something. That was something. And yeah, so we see, like the anarchist said, we see that when they get there, they have to like dress a certain way, which I thought that was great to show the reality that you had to look really nice in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, you had to look really nice. It was a city where blacks could really just, you know, it was a certain type of class of blacks there. And so I thought that was interesting too. And we just see the story go, the inevitable happens with like the destruction of Tulsa, Oklahoma, everything that happens, the burning, the fires, and everything that we will dive into. So, yeah, I said we will be diving into that, exactly what happens, which is terrible, but really the reality of what truly happened is more terrifying than what we saw in these 45 minutes. They do arrive there, and you know what I noticed after well, actually before they got dressed and everything, just this like ghost in the shell type of mentality that Montrose had. Like he was just kind of like in and out of it, like reliving basically this trauma and like that he experienced and stuff. But I have mixed feelings about that. You know, this whole like I feel like it was more like his episode. It was Hippolyta because she returned and she's the star. No, but it was like I feel like it was talking a lot about him, which I understand, and I feel like this is like the writers trying to have us have sympathy for Montrose. I understand that. I just feel like we should have been able to see more of like Tulsa and stuff like that, other than just like his story being played out. Because we see that they get there, he's all nervous, and Atticus snaps on him and tells him, "Look, after this, we done, because you may not even really be my father. So if you're not, that's the only reason why I took your stuff and your abuses, because I thought you were my father. I thought I had to love you, and you're not my father. Maybe." And they keep going back and forth with this maybe thing, like they really don't know if he's the father, but he could be, but maybe he's not. I don't know. And so we see that happen. I really love the scene, even though like Atticus's grandfather, Montrose's father, we see him like abusing him. That was unfortunate. I like the scene where his mother, Atticus's mother, came and tried to defend him, and to see how they were as young people, see how Uncle George was, and how they were ready to go to this prom that was canceled, and just seeing them as young people, and just even though Uncle George isn't existing anymore in this reality, we still get to see how they were as young people. I wonder why they made this episode about Montrose. About to say Montrose and his experience growing up. Like, I get the abuse thing. I totally get that. But then we find out that Montrose liked a boy when he was a teenager or preteen. And the real reason why his father was beating him, it wasn't just because he was angry. But he was beating him because he was like putting a flower in his hair, and like he did something. Like he put like a flower that was supposed to be the flower you put on your prom, the guys put on their prom suit, in his hair, and playing around in the mirror. And then Montrose is kind of in denial about that, but his father said like what it was, and then we found out that in this scene they decided to write in that he had a boy that he liked even then. And so like most of the episode, he was trying to go and find this boy to save him and everything. And Atticus is like, well, you can't save him, because if you all end up together, I may not exist, and I have to exist. And for a minute his father said something like, well, it's a risk I want to take or something. I know he said he wouldn't do it, but he was like on the cusp of like going to go save this boy, which I understand if it's a friend and you care about them. But it became like this, oh, I'm trying to go save this boy that I had a crush on. And I'm like, how is this driving the story? I don't know. I feel like we could have seen more of Tulsa than we did. Like, I would have loved for them to actually go on the dance. Like, I love the whole idea of like Back to the Future. I was so excited. That's one thing I said in the beginning. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future. But then when they did that, I'm like, huh? I'm like, we're not getting any type of like Back to the Future. I know it was a television show, and I know I'm talking. I'll let you talk, but I know it's a TV show. But I'm like, geez, like at least we got to experience some of like the past. Like here, we only get bits and clips, bits and pieces, and I would love to see more. What did you think about that?
Um, oh, this is a piece to Laura, Random Christian Musings. It's my girl Laura. It says, "Am I supposed to mod for right now?" I'll check and see if you have the mod. Because I modded her up based on some of my last lives, but I'll figure that out probably on my live Sunday. But no, we're just doing a review of Lovecraft Country episode 9 right now. I don't think we're gonna get any trolls in this. Hopefully not. But
Nah.
and Leland's in the room too. Shout out to
Hi,
Leland, other
Leland.
supporters. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Almeida. What were you saying before?
How do you feel about this whole thing with like not George, Montrose basically spending the episode like trying to go and find this boy he had a crush on and save him, and like
It was interesting because I know I hope you don't hate me for this, but I know the writers were looking for sympathy, and honestly, I found it in Montrose. I found a little bit of sympathy in Montrose because, which I felt,
yeah.
and I actually I agree with you. I feel like I would like more for them to have dove into Tulsa and for us to understand a little bit more what was going on at that time, because obviously this is something in American history that people really don't like to talk about. People obviously don't like to talk about a town that was actually bombed by the U.S. government, a black city, a
The
black thriving
Tulsa
city.
massacre, exactly. The Tulsa massacre and how white America massacred this thriving black community, because that's what it was,
Right. And Rage
Rage
2020, peace to Rage 2020.
says
Uh,
hey, and then we
yep. So
have Mimi
Ty
Renee.
in the room
Ty
said,
is in
peace,
the room. Hi.
everyone. Ty, beautiful spirit.
Hi, Ty.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in.
So yeah, back to my point. I feel like I honestly, when we look through all the episodes of Lovecraft Country, Montrose is a straight up a-hole. You feel me? Like he is not somebody who I would want to be around, who I think should be around kids, this, that, and the other. He's just unruly, as my Jamaican brethren would say. Shout out to y'all. Peace. But he's just not nice. He rude. You feel me? So we were really trying to understand, like, why is this dude like this? And the fact that, and honestly, and this may just be me, I am an empath, which I know you are as well, but just looking into the episode objectively, because I really did not like the previous episode, but looking into this one, obviously he starts off just real weary about what's happening, and Atticus gives him no leeway. He's like, man, you know what? Basically just cuts all ties. He's like, after this, I just don't really want to have nothing to do with you. But what we see is in this time in Tulsa, which is about to be one of the worst massacres on American soil, and the fact that before that he was, Leon said, Atticus reminds me of you. Okay. Because I am very heroic. You feel me? Smart too. I be in them
well,
books.
the books. I can see the book. Yeah, see, we said at the same time. Jinx. Yeah, I can see the books. I don't see you serving in the war, though. I don't see you serving
Heck
in the
no.
war.
But he made a mistake. He made a mistake. I made my mistake. But no, I would say, it was interesting just to watch that character, kind of the reason why we see that character, because obviously in that time in 1920s, that was really a homophobic time. And obviously the father of George and Montrose didn't want a gay son, clearly. So he's beating him because he found not only was he wearing his son's, suit, but he had the flower in his hair. So he's telling him to cut him a switch off a tree and is beating in public, beating his son in public, for obviously not wanting him to be that way. So it's interesting that, obviously Montrose is dealing with that trauma at the time, suppressing who he really is. But then he goes to his friend to try to explain to him that we can't be friends anymore because you this way, and I really don't want to be this way. My dad's beating me. And what happens in that scenario is probably his first love, his gay lover, gets his brains blown out. And then right after that, he basically loses everything, and his whole entire city, all his family is burnt up. So it's just like after that, of course, he has PTSD. He has the worst form of PTSD after that. I'm pretty sure anybody who experienced, remember in Tulsa, which actually, if you guys want to know the history, everybody here should look up Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Tulsa massacre, the race riots, whatever. But it was supposedly started over a man named, I believe his name is Dick Rowland. I believe that's the black man's name.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we about to start dropping now. The black man, basically, obviously, there was Tulsa, Oklahoma.
What you mean we're about to start dropping?
dropping knowledge, because
Oh
this,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Go
yeah, we
ahead.
about to start dropping some knowledge. We're gonna give our review, but this is also decoding. So,
Yes.
which there's not much to decode. They didn't really say this in it, but if you guys look up Tulsa and you want to learn more about it, it started over a man named Dick Rowland. You can look this up. And as the story goes, he was supposed to be. There is actually a documentary on YouTube about it. It's very interesting. But they say he supposedly tripped into an elevator onto a woman, and she got scared, ran out the elevator, and of course the white people in town were like real mad about that. So they got this dude, put him in jail, wanted to lynch him, and obviously the black people in Tulsa were like, nope, this is not going to happen. We getting our guns. We just, we have as much power as you. You're not about to just lynch one of our citizens for something we don't even really know happened. Which the interesting thing is, that was the official story, but I learned a little bit more about it in the future. And another narrative is that this black man, Dick Rowland, was actually supposedly with that white woman. I heard a story of saying that they either went to either Chicago or Detroit and got married after that. But that was another story. But this was the narrative that was given. The fact that the racist narrative was that he was trying to rape and harass this woman. But I guess eyewitnesses on the scene said that, people that were there said he might have tripped onto her.
For them.
That basically was what happened. So yeah, what happened was he was taken to a jailhouse. Black men came with their guns. White men came with their guns trying to disarm the black man. Some shots were fired, and that's how the actual riots got started. But in this particular Lovecraft Country series, this episode, we don't really get that context. We don't really get a lot of what really happened at the time. But, obviously we see when the sun goes down, which takes us back to episode 1, which was about sundown towns. But Tulsa obviously wasn't a sundown town. But when the sun went down, some white racists went around the town and obviously harassed Letitia first. They tried to shoot at Letitia, who we know has an invulnerability spell, cannot die. But she runs, basically into Atticus's family member's house, right? Where we see now one thing.
Go ahead. That was
one thing. One thing I'll say. I mean, I'll let you go. Is I really, like you always talk about when you talk about characters, there is a duality in Montrose and George's father, because when I saw him brutally beat his son because he didn't want him to be gay or whatever, I was looking at him like, man, that's not really. I don't think that's a good black father. Doing that. You should probably accept your son, but when I seen a scene where he basically took out the gun to protect this black woman, this light-skinned black woman, he didn't even know, which obviously that doesn't matter, but he didn't even know, and he was willing to shoot at some white folk, like, come on, and then he wasn't scared. I'm like, yeah, because there was black men like this in that time. So there is a duality with, obviously I didn't like the way he was raising some of his sons, because we know that he wasn't treating George the same way, which was brought up by Atticus's mother, which I just want to include in as well. It seemed like to me Atticus's mom was in love with George even from that time, but she married Montrose because she loved him too as a friend, and she wanted to get the gay stigma off him. So she was trying to protect him as well. And I think that's obviously that stuff Atticus wouldn't know and understand in his position, but we're seeing that this was actually going on, and he gets to see it as well. But just to wrap this up, I do like how the father comes out with his shotgun, doesn't know this black woman, but he's like, get in the house. The other dude, they almost got into something early because he's like, you can whip your son, but you ain't about to do nothing to my daughter. So, but he was like, y'all come in my house. You know what I'm saying? So there was just unity here.
They quickly got on cold because it was about,
Yeah. So no, that just shows you the importance of things in a black community. Like, obviously he didn't agree with him disciplining his son out in the public, and his daughter came to save him, and him threatening, like, no, you're not going to do that. So these are two black men, real black men, obviously. And at night when it got serious, that goes out the window. This is our community. We black men, we have to protect. So I like to see that. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I love that power dynamic of like them coming in, like they had their shotguns ready in their house, like this. And really, this is something that can teach today's society, like black society, like get you a firearm, like get license to carry, because in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they were packing, like they were a community that like had their weapons and stuff, like. And so I love seeing that all of them had their weapons, and that the father, whose father was it? It was Atticus's mother's father. So Atticus's grandfather on his mother's side, who was like, hey, we don't know you, sis, but here's a gun for you too. He gave her one of his guns. I'm like, you don't know her, keep your gun. But, and she's invulnerable, but he doesn't know that. But I loved how they just, they quickly became a family. They could have been like, hey, they all in it for themselves, but they're like, no, we don't know you, but you a part of us. Like it's us against them. And I love how they stood together, how they were fearless, how um Uncle George's dad was a G. Atticus's grandpa was a D. He was G. He was like, I'm gonna go back around to the back. All right. He exited through the back and he was like, okay, I'm going, it's only so many places they could hide or whatever. And I'm like, like I love the duality as well of characters, because characters have flaws and good things about them, and that's just a part of being a character. And so yeah, I thought that was very interesting. What I didn't like about this whole, okay, I'll say what I did like first. So when they're in the household and like Letitia's like, she knows what's going to happen. That's the most terrible thing, to have to go back in the past and already know what's going to happen. And you have to fight against your own willpower to not change it, because it can change your very existence. Like, I don't know. Like, I think Letitia did a good job at the Journey Smollett did a good job at embodying that. But just me as someone who loves stories, I was just like, man, that's tough. Like, because I would want to save everybody, but saving everybody could alter my existence and everybody around me, like, because if people survive, things could happen differently. They could have married different people. So I see her like battling with that. I loved the sister of Atticus's mother talking about how we just got into a fight and I want to apologize to her, and everything, when we get through all this, I'm going to apologize to her, because that doesn't matter. And that just kind of made me like tear up just thinking about that. Like, the reality of how many families were like broken up, and they may have had like discourse and arguments, and they never got to say I'm sorry, or I apologize, or I forgive you, or hey, I don't care if you wear my outfit. It was, like, to think, I love that they wrote that in there, because it was so many families who didn't get a chance to say goodbye. People who actually survived the massacres, the few who did, like, they probably were left with those thoughts. Like, that sister just wanted to apologize to Atticus's mother, which is her sister, about something they had an argument about. I thought that was great writing to put that in there, because that's the reality. Like, at the moment when they're about to die and get attacked, like, families are thinking like, yo, did I say goodbye to my loved one? Did I apologize for that argument earlier? I should have just gave them the extra piece of steak or whatever, because it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now I just want to see them and let them know that I love them. And so I thought that was great writing. And how Journey Smollett, Leti plays, she plays into it, not plays into it, but she's just like, yeah, everything's going to be okay. She's like, we're going to make it out of this, and I'll be able to tell her whatever. She's like, yeah, okay. And we realize that this girl isn't going to make it out of it. And I love that. But I didn't like how that woman, the woman who ended up having the book of names, I think that was Atticus's grandmother, how she just stood there in the fire. Like, I didn't think that was realistic. Like, she was like, hey, you're gonna die, we're gonna die, aren't we? Where are you from? And and then just like holding her hand while she dies. I'm like, what is this? No way I'm gonna be holding nobody's hand. No, like, I'm gonna run, or I'm gonna go downstairs and try to get a few shots off of the people that are killing my family. I hear people down there racing and running and all that type of stuff. It's no way. After I give her the book, I'm going down there to help my family, because just by doing that, her not being downstairs, and this is me getting too heavy into like the multiverse. Well, I don't know, it ain't multiverse, but the whole idea of like Back to the Future, just by her staying upstairs with Leti has changed history, because she would have been downstairs fighting. You know what I mean? So how many people survived because she didn't, or how many people like died who would have not, you know what I mean? Because she was upstairs talking to Leti, handing her this book and holding her hand, and she gets burnt into a piece of crisp. I don't know. Am I too much with this? I didn't like that. No. I didn't think it was realistic.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the fact that you said it let me know is real, and now I can talk about just what I believe are writing errors, which is what's for me stopping this show, what has been stopping this show from being like a perfect show. You have such a great idea, you executing it well, you obviously are well funded, you obviously have amazing actors, you got some pretty good writers, but it's just like you cut corners a little bit, and they obviously did there, because I'm just in it, and from there was actually a lot of it was compelling stuff in this episode. Like I said, the whole stuff we learn about Montrose and why he has true PTSD and why he is the way he is, because just to spend another second on it, in that moment where he was really kind of chastising his really was his lover, but let's just say it's his friend, telling him, look, we can't be together because I can't be gay. My dad is beating the heck out of me, so get away from me. And his gay lover gets shot right in front of him. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I just want to bring that up because right after that, the whole Tulsa massacre happens. And we find out that him, George, and, Atticus's mother are the only people who make it out with the Book of Names at that time. But the fact that is associated with the gayness, I feel like is why he's just so frustrated and angry. Not only does he just have regular
he says that he's like, look, like, not only am I not your dad, but everything I sacrificed up until this point, is the reason why he basically is angry. He was like, I denied who I was to this boy, and and then I married your mother and I couldn't be who I was. So that's why he did all of this. And he said all he wanted to do was be a father to him. And I'm like, nah, this ain't making no sense. So you want to be a father to a man, to a boy that may not be yours, and you blaming him and everybody else for something that happened in your childhood. And I know the reality is things happen to people every day and it doesn't make sense. Their trauma doesn't make sense. The way they process it and the way they lash out doesn't make sense. But, I just was like, I don't know. I get where he was coming from with it, but it still doesn't make sense to take it out on Atticus. Like, I don't know. Like, but I get it. It's trauma, and trauma doesn't always make sense. Trauma just shows up. But yeah, I just was like, oh, was this necessary? I don't know. It was necessary to people, so.
Yeah, and like I said, I just say that to say, because I understand how trauma really works. So that trauma associated with around the whole thing with gayness, that ties into this series, and I guess why they had to do the whole gay liberation episode. Because I'm just like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, why do I have to divert for this? But the fact that they put that back in, of course, it's still agenda. But if I'm just critiquing it for a story, I thought they at least got us to understand why Montrose is the way he is, because I can understand somebody being real effed up after that. Doesn't mean you should be beating on your child. Doesn't mean you should be abusing children. You need to be dealing with that. But still, you understand it. But as far as what you were talking about, yeah, with the writing, that scene where the grandmother, supposed, great grandma, whoever, obviously, I don't know how much of the magic stuff, the occult stuff she knew about, because when she asked her about, oh, what about the Book of Names? Like, the only book I know is the good book, young lady. What you talking about?
I was like, that's so funny, yeah.
Yeah, she don't know nothing, but
she don't know about the Book of Names, but you gotta keep it, so it's of importance. But that just kind of reminded me of like some like as if it's a biblical book, like if it's a biblical book or something like that. That's what it reminded me of when she said that, like tying it to religion in some type of way.
Yeah, so it's interesting because this is another thing I really didn't understand about the writer. You telling me they probably have in a burning house, maybe let's say 5 minutes tops. So you're explaining to this old woman in 1921 that, hey, I'm just back from the past. That's why I got tennis shoes. That's why
believing you.
That's what I'm saying. And then but no, she believes you to the point where she'll sit there and burn herself.
Exactly.
Burn herself. Okay, like, oh, okay. Clearly, you are for the future, and clearly, you do need this book, and clearly, I need to die for the future to go. So let me just. So I'm like, because my thing, my thing is, because she's like, well, ain't you about to die too? No, I'm good. I'll just sit here and watch you though. But my thing is,
exactly. I would have left. Like, why are you standing there? Like, I would have went. Go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, man, listen, that's just very unbelievable. And I don't know how you feel you can get away with it. I understand maybe if you're putting it in, you just want a real dramatic, like, oh, this going to make people. I feel like you should just make the scenario that she did actually go back downstairs and got burnt up, because I'm not sitting here believing. Yeah. I'm not sitting here believing that she would just sacrifice herself and stand in the spot and get literally burned to death.
And then because she has a family. No matter what knowledge you have just received from this Back to the Future person, you have a family downstairs that's dying. And you mean to tell me you're going to stay up here and hold this woman's hand instead of going down there and fighting with every breath of your body? No. She's going to go downstairs and fight with every breath of her body. No.
Yeah, I don't know one person on this earth that would do that in that scenario, which, like I said,
I don't think you can stand still and burn to death. Can you? I don't know.
It just don't make sense. No.
Yeah.
You're gonna be I'm pretty sure that's agonizing pain. So it's just like, it didn't really make no sense to me. It took me out, because I'm just like, I don't believe this. But
And then,
anyway,
oh, that's how she was looking. That's how she was looking. I'm like, no. Why did y'all do this to her? Like, just let the character go out, dying, fighting, dying, not just standing there holding her. And I felt like it was trying to make us feel more sad for what happened to them. We didn't need all that. We already felt the energy before they even got through the portal. But to just have this woman just like, no, they didn't have to do that. It would have been better and more stronger of a scene if she went down there and because Leti did tell her that she was pregnant with her grandson. I think she told her that. And so maybe that's why she wanted to hold her hair. I don't know. All I know is that I will go down there and fight for the children that I know in this reality, not for no future children, because Letty could be back crazy, you know what I mean? She could just be crazy, you know what I mean? Who needs the book? It don't matter. Give her the book. You go save your family, even if she's very convincing. But go and save you. I just didn't believe that. So that was very interesting. And I thought, not interesting. It took me out of the scene. I was just like, I wouldn't know. No. And so from there, we see, I did like this element. It reminded me of like Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And it reminded me of Back to the Future when they were waiting for the Jackie Robinson type character to come in to save them with the bat and say, hey, I got you. Because remember, Atticus said that George and Montrose told him the story over and over again. And if you're a movie fan in Back to the Future, Marty is stories that his father and mother told him over and over again about history. And you and I, we have older family members who have told us stories all like over and over again to where we feel like we lived that experience. So I thought that was kind of cool because that happens in Back to the Future. And this is like them going back in time in this episode where he said, oh, I know this story. I know it. I've been told it 100 times. You're going in the park, my mother and Uncle George, and a guy shows up with a bat and he says, I got you, kid. And he basically tackles everybody. Another reason why this is interesting and it ties into Harry Potter and I think the Order of the Phoenix is because, Harry Potter and the it's the one with, it don't matter. One of the Harry Potter. I know, right? One of the Harry Potter films, The Prisoner of Azkaban, I think. One of those is because they're waiting for the Jackie Robinson character to come up and save the day, attack everybody, and say, I got you, kid. And you know who it was? It was Atticus. He was like, where is he? And then he trips over the bat. He looks down, looks up, and realizes it's him. In Harry Potter and either the Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry Potter was waiting for his dad to show up. And this is how I know y'all. Focus. Just stay with me, y'all. He was waiting for his dad to show up in the forest, the Forbidden Forest, you guys. And he never showed up. And he realized he had to perform his own Patronus. And then he realized, yo, that wasn't my dad. That was me from another reality or future or whatever. So I'm just like, they're tying me into a lot of movies. I'm a movie person. I'm an artist. So I love like storytelling and stuff. And so I thought that was kind of cool that Atticus was his father, well, I don't know if Montrose is really his father, but he's technically like Montrose's savior, and so I think that's going to build their relationship because he had to speak life into the boy that was Montrose, even though the man that is Montrose never spoke life into him. Too heavy, too deep, too random? What?
Nope. Heavy enough, deep enough,
okay,
random enough.
that's what I got from that. Mimi says, no, Lynn, this is just, oh, okay. Because Lynn said, is this a live stream every Wednesday? And she said, no, this is just a breakdown for Lovecraft. But the Anarkist goes live every Thursday, dropping some great knowledge. Thank you for that, Mimi Renee. Tyler, right? Thank you for that, Tyler.
Her name is Ty. Yeah.
Oh, Ty. Okay. Thank you for that, Ty. Quickly, I just want to just give a shout out to the Anarkist. Make sure you go to his channel and buy a Truth Seeker t-shirt. If you are interested in the truth and really understanding what's going on in this country, visit the Anarkist. He goes live all the time, but definitely he has certain days that he goes live on his channel. He has t-shirts, coffee mugs for Truth Seeker. I saw that you just launched the shirt for like Hillary or something. What was that about?
Hillary for prison. #save our children. But we'll talk about that tomorrow on the Anarkist podcast.
yeah, follow him if you're interested in opening up your mind, and if you're interested in just learning and diving into knowledge, visit the Anarkist. Also, shout out to one of our sponsors, My Personal Detail. If you're interested in getting your car detailed in the city of Chicago, and soon the detail company will be everywhere. But for right now, it's in Chicago. And if you're located in the Chicago area, visit mpdetail.com. That's mpdetail.com. Also visit My Personal Detail on Instagram and on YouTube. On Instagram, you can check out all the videos from different people who have gotten their car detailed. If you need a regular detail, a car wash inside and out, a ceramic coating, headlight restorations, or any type of sanitation of your vehicle, contact My Personal Detail. They will restore life to your vehicle and leave you feeling like you just got a brand new car. So I just wanted to do that like commercial break kind of as we wrap up this episode 9, Rewind 1921. So like I was saying, the Anarchist. So I didn't really like that, and we see that Atticus saves his father, his uncle. He saves George Montrose and his mother. And then they go back to the time machine and they realize Leti isn't there, and Hippolyta is foaming at the mouth, and I just felt so bad. I thought Hippolyta was gonna die. I'm like, we cannot lose you. I thought I already lost you. We lost George. We can't lose you. You started here on about to go into another transition from this realm. Like, I'm just like, please, how are you doing this? But her strength to hold on and to connect them from universes. Like, the Black woman is God. Like, she was connected. She was holding on to all that she was, her vessel. And she still had those chips in her in this reality. So she really has to be like some type of superhuman. Because I thought it was interesting that they kept those blue chips inside of her. And she's holding on. She's like, I can't hold on anymore. And George's Atticus is like, hold on now, just hold on. Hold on, you could do it, you could do it. I'm like, what are you shouting gonna do? But it did something. It did something. And she just foaming and and I'm like, she about to die. I can't. What is going on? And then her hair turned blue, like the comic book. I thought that was so dope. She gonna have blue hair. And then we see your girl Journey Smollett walking through the fire. I'm like, why is she taking her time? Hippolyta's about to die. Like, why are you walking so slow? And she just walking, just marching down there, like Ruby Bridges, basically, but in Tulsa. Like, I felt like, because the old episode, I mean, the old clips of Ruby Bridges with her book, just going into the schools all militant, like trying to be strong. That's how, I know I give a lot of different examples, but like, that's how, Leti was walking down, down the street. And I know she a strong sister. She had to carry all the weight of what she just saw and carry the weight of knowing that these people that she just met are going to die, and there's nothing she can do about it unless she wants to alter her own existence. But I just feel like she could have sped that up. She could have sped up that walk. Like, we could have got more of Tulsa if they would have hurried up that walk and cut some of these other things down. We could have really like have fun with the idea of Tulsa. I just kind of want them to I want season 2 to be about Tulsa. No, I don't know. They can't. I don't know if they could do that, but like, I don't know. I wanted more of Tulsa and less of like. I feel like it was like some scenes that were lagging that didn't have to lag. But that's basically what happens, and they end up getting Leti out, right? And do you want to say anything before? That's basically what happens. They end up getting all of them out, and yeah. Do you want to say anything about the ending? What did you feel about it?
Well, those particular parts I would have to agree with you a lot on. I think I was feeling the same thing. Like I said, when it comes to writing, and Ty says I felt the same way. I was like, girl, if you don't hurry up, that's exactly how I felt. Everybody felt that way. That's why I say the writing is just, I don't know. Obviously, because it's just in a scene, what's at stake. You like, y'all know Hippolyta is doing this and doing her energy. So why she have to just tread down real slow? But one thing about that scene is obviously it was just very beautiful. You can see the whole city burning and the actual planes dropping fire on the city. So if maybe that's why they did it, because that's the really only time I've seen in a movie where they acknowledge that Tulsa actually was bombed by planes.
Yeah, and I didn't even pay attention to that, because I'm like, they're making it seem like a couple of white guys in a truck came, and I'm like, no, it was more than that. It was a massacre. And I wasn't even paying attention. I just saw the fire all around. I didn't realize anybody was throwing the bombs down. I just thought they tried to water down what truly happened, but I didn't see that they did that. If they did that, that's great that they did that. But
Yeah,
no
that like you
show.
said, they could have did a lot more, for people to really
Mm-hmm.
understand what was going on. But I understand. I guess you had to. But like you said, there was a lot of scenes that just drag on so long. You just like, do we really need to see this for that long? But anyway, once they leave the portal, and as you said, Hippolyta does transform and gets blue hair, which I don't know how you explain that. I want to touch on too. You did say she still had the things in her arms, which I'm not understanding why she still got them. I'm still thinking maybe that's a part of agenda because obviously this was kind of like a
Chip.
transhumanist episode as well. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? She has these chips in her arm, mark of the beast 666. So you got to watch out for that in movies because I know J.J. Abrams is an executive producer, and if this wasn't PG-13, I would give him the middle finger. But I'm just gonna say I disagree with a lot that you do, J.J. Abrams. You are a very despicable person. I don't like you, and I don't like any of the elite people that you hang around and in Hollywood. Ty says the military was dropping bombs. That's what she was walking through. Yep, military was dropping. That was a government plane, and they were dropping bombs on that city.
Mm.
But after that, obviously, they get back to the future or in this reality, whichever one we're in. And also, what we really didn't talk about in this episode is Ruby and her. She's obviously in this for real, because she did. Well, you touched on it a little bit, but she's there. She didn't say that Letitia was pregnant with Atticus. She didn't say that originally. But could you talk a little bit about how you felt about like Atticus and knowing, because I believe in one scene when he goes off with Montrose,
Yeah, he knows that she's
Letitia's
pregnant. Right now,
yeah, he
the only
knows.
person that doesn't know that everyone else knows is Ruby. Ruby doesn't know that she was trying to hold back. She was like, because she's, and then she stopped or whatever. I'm like, everybody know Ruby.
Right,
Everybody know, but
but
you, even Christina know. She don't
right,
love you. She know that your sister's pregnant and you don't know. And you trying to,
right.
like, go ahead.
So how do you feel about like what I don't forgot what I was gonna say now, but
You talking about Christina and Ruby and, I didn't touch on something with Christina and Ruby. Is it their whole
um
dynamic or
dang, I don't forgot, but I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I forgot what my
okay?
question
I'm
was.
gonna have to stop
You know how my
interrupting you
mind
so
get,
you
especially at
I
this point at
know.
night.
Yeah, I gotta stop interrupting you so you can hold those thoughts together. Hold them
Yeah,
together.
I try, but I try to focus on what you're saying as well, which makes it a little bit harder. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting the whole dynamic with, because Ruby was a huge part of this episode. Oh, and this is what I was gonna say when the scene where Letitia is talking to Atticus and she says that of course they both know that she's pregnant. She was like, I was thinking about naming him George.
Oh yeah, I heard
And she thinks that's supposed to be like, it's gonna make him happy because of course he loves his Uncle George, which we know is his father, but he's kind of looking like, oh snap, this all falling in line. I got this book that says written by George Freeman, and it talks about how I am dead in the sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? So he's just a little apprehensive because it's just like, dang, it's all this stuff is just being solidified that his future is to be sacrificed by Christina, which according to her will give her immortality. And the only thing I really just want to speak about with Ruby is I seen another reviewer talking about how, and I'm not sure if this is still a thing, but how she has this lust to be a white woman, and then you have Christina, who is a white woman, and she's trying to be a white man. So I don't know if there's anything that there with that. 'Cause
Hmm.
I figure after the whole episode where she was a white woman, that kind of was, I don't know, but she does seem to still want something. I don't know if it's just that she is now a lesbian and
Cause
loves
she keeps
Christina or
turning into a white woman. She keeps doing it, and I'm like, well,
right.
why do that? What are the writers trying to tell us with this? Like, what's the intention behind this? Because none of this ever happened in the book, and
Mm.
it just seems like it's unnecessary. It seems like it's very unnecessary. Is it just to hide from who she is? Well, why have sex with Christina as a woman? And why keep doing it? Why keep doing that? And why present her as such? And like I know all characters are flawed, and all people are flawed. But why present her as this strong woman, and then she basically be the one that's succumbing to Christina? It seems like they made her out to be smarter than what she's actually being. And I don't understand why she's just become basically Christina's like lapdog. Like she's basically just acting like she fell in love with her. And I don't know if Christina has some type of spell over her that she's not aware of. But I don't know if that makes like that's not really making sense to me. And I don't think that they built up enough chemistry in the story for it to make sense to me. Like if it was a lot of chemistry, because keep in mind, she met him at a bar and had sex that night. And then
Here in Chicago, we call those thoughts.
That's
We call those thoughts. But anyway, I don't know if it's some coon
Dottie.
juice mixed in with that little white elixir or something. What's going on? But yeah, she acting very erratic. You know what I'm saying? She acting
Yeah.
unruly.
And she's known her sister her whole life, and she's known so many people like Hippolyta and George and Diana and
But I think that's
Tick,
probably gonna
Atticus.
be with episode 10. Maybe it's gonna be down to Ruby to kind of choose whether because at
And
this point,
maybe she'll turn on her. But how are things gonna come together? Like, I'm confused because we have 45 minutes, unless they make it like, what's 45? 90-minute show. I don't understand how they're gonna do all this, because keep in mind, I feel like, what's her name is gonna come back. GI is gonna come back. If she doesn't come back, why the heck show us all of this stuff about GI? If she's only gonna come in and him tell her to leave and then she leaves, like, what? Like, they have to tie her in, and this is going to be a lot of one-liner explaining things like, okay, yeah, we're back from the future and we're doing this now, and we solved this 10 weeks ago, let's move on. No, like, you have to develop the story, develop the characters. We only have
and
one episode left.
do
What's
you
going to
think
happen?
they're gonna be a season 2? This might be. I don't know if they would. This seems like it's one of those projects where they were just planning on doing one season, and I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think they filmed this like a couple of years ago. I think it was filmed like a couple of years ago. So I don't know. I mean, if they do, I guess it just depends. Like I said, when I'm looking at people online doing comments and stuff, it's mixed reviews, but it's a lot of people that are like, yes, yes, like, give us more, give us more. So who knows what HBO and the executive producers are going to do, if they're going to do a season 2. It's mixed reviews, because keep in mind, there's a lot of people who are very uncomfortable with the dynamic of racism in this show. A lot of people that are in denial about how it existed and how it exists now and why they're putting it in a TV show. And so who knows if it's more of them than it is people that love it. I see a lot of people that love it, and I'm a part of the artist community, so a lot of artists are excited to see different people, like, working, and this whole narrative, and how the story
As
has come
someone a
together.
part of the nerd in the history community, I do like that aspect of it. I don't want to don't nerd shame or history buff shame, but please go ahead.
Yeah, and the nerd, black nerds, and all nerds united, all nerds matter. No. A lot of people love this, have been excited because they feel like they've been represented in one episode or another, and I understand that. We talked about that throughout, doing these reviews. Like, I feel like they're kind of pushing too hard to make everybody feel included. But they have constantly brought up the conversation about LGBTQ and every other, and the community of, like, that community has been, like, heavily, like, talked about in this show. And I feel like outside of them, like, people are interested in time travel, like me and you, and different dimensions, and astronomy, and what else, like pirates, stuff like that, like all types of things, ghosts, horror. So like a lot of themes, so many themes you can think of have been included in this show, that they've been able to relate to a lot of different audiences, and so especially like nerds and everything, and then people who just want to see representation of Black people on the screen, and not even just Black representation, because we had Asian representation on here, that's all I can think of right now as far as, like, representation. But I'm saying, like, I don't know if the intention was ever to do a season 2, but I'm interested to see if there will be. I don't know, like, it depends on how they wrap up this last episode, because it has to be a compelling audience. Like, the audience has to be compelled enough to be like, yeah, we need this, we need this, we need this. I don't really know how ratings are going. I don't know how ratings are going for this show. I just know that in the community, and not even just, I know a lot of people are excited about it, So I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a season 2. It just depends on how episode 10 wraps up.
Yeah.
Someone said, Christine Williams says, "What up, family?"
Peace, Christine.
Ty says, "I think it's because she feels like Christina Williams gives her power."
I think I would agree with that. I think it more so to do with Ruby's lust for knowing more about magic, and the fact
Oh,
that
I just thought about something. This is why I can't rock with Ruby. Remember I told you Ruby was becoming my favorite character in episode 1, like her opening, like, scenes and stuff. I loved it. Christina told Ruby that she was going to kill Atticus, basically, remember? And she said, just promise me you won't hurt my sister. Your sister pregnant with this man. Like, that's the father of your that's the father of your niece or nephew. What do you mean? Promise you won't hurt my sister. She don't love you if she's gonna kill the father of your sister's child and leave your sister a single mother. What are you talking about? What has Atticus ever done to you, Ruby? I don't understand why she would say that. Like, hasn't Atticus been like a friend to you? Like, like why I would, you know what I mean? Like, what did you think about that when she said that? She was like, yeah, just don't hurt my sister. I don't care about the man that she loves.
I
That's gonna hurt your
mean,
sister, but I don't care about the man he loves. Like I just didn't think that was realistic.
I mean,
I don't
that point,
know.
I'm not, because if you really look at the dynamic, one, Ruby doesn't necessarily seem that close to Atticus, even if he's close to George, Hippolyta, and Diana, because Hippolyta did choose Ruby to watch Diana while she left. So even if she trusts her on that level as a woman in the community that can do that, Atticus, he's been going off to war. Ruby, they are kind of obviously grew up together, but it's just like even Ruby and Letitia, they are kind of estranged sisters. So even for her to just be like, well, protect my sister, that kind of shows me maybe she doesn't too much. Not that she doesn't care about Atticus, but when it comes to who has to die, you know what I'm saying? Just make sure my sister don't have to die. So, like I said, that could be more just bad writing or just, how they just wanted to put that character, even though I do agree that it is not really congruent with who that character was at the beginning. But wrapping up, what do you think? How did this episode particularly end? Because I might have been blanking on some
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah, I was about to just get into like one question I wanted to ask you about the episode. But like basically it ended with them coming out the portal and Hippolyta holding it open long enough so that Letitia could come out. And then she falls down and she says, hey, we did it. And then that's really how it ends. Like that's how it ends. And I don't even think that they did a spell for, I don't remember them doing a spell for Diana, for Dee, to like uh restore her. At that time, I just remember they were holding Hippolyta and Hippolyta was okay. I'm like, okay, I guess she's gonna survive. And then, and that's it. And I'm like, well, what's going to happen? We got 45 minutes in one episode. Like, what's really going to happen? So, my question to you as we wrap up episode 9 of season 1 of Lovecraft Country, episode 9 is entitled Rewind 1921, where they journey to Tulsa to find the Book of Names. They successfully find it, and we're going to figure out what happens next. My question to you, the Anarchist, as we wrap up with this is really, we have one episode left, right? So I'm not going to ask you what's your prediction for the season. I just want to know, well, first, before I ask you that, what were you most surprised about in this week's episode?
What was I most surprised about? Like I said, I was most surprised that I did kind of not necessarily switch my stance on Montrose because I still don't like him. But if I feel like they did a good job of anything in this particular episode, it was making me sympathize because being someone who did study what went on in Tulsa, I just remember studying that when I was like maybe 19, 20 years old, and I did cry. Like, I am a crybaby. So when I was reading into that, I'm like, dang, this really happened to Black folks. And I was watching documentaries and reading different stories and narratives. So the fact that they did, I understood it did tie into this particular story, but the fact that now we know that he not only lived through it, escaped it, watched his first love get blown off while he was, kind of going through this whole thing with his father. So that let me understand. I do understand that there are some very, very broken Black men based on some of the stuff that's happened over the years in this country. Just talking to like my grandfather and some of the different older men. But when I look at that, I'm like, dang, like again, as a man, you just kind of got to eat it. But I can't really say that because I haven't, as much as I've been through, I've never been through anything like that. So that was probably what I was most surprised at, the fact that I talk about what I don't like about the writing, and there's a lot in this episode we did talk about. But what I do like is that this is one thing, like I said, I will give this show credit for is we wouldn't even be talking about these things if this show wasn't putting it out. So as much as I do critique, because I do want my brothers and sisters to be better when we putting stuff out, especially stuff that has to really do with history and it's really tying in different spiritual concepts. But they, the fact that they did put this together and did an entire episode on Tulsa. Maybe people will look up what happened in Tulsa, and just for, not necessarily just to see, what the government did, but to see there's an example right out of slavery of Black people who literally thrived in they called it Black Wall Street.
And they could
Tulsa
have
was
done
called.
more. They could have done more to like just set the tone for how it was. I just felt like we needed more Tulsa to really show how it was, not just like bits and pieces. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that was basically what I was surprised at, is those two things. It's just that, okay, they did include Tulsa. I was a little bit let down that it wasn't talked about a little bit more, but I was surprised that the writing was able to shift my stance on Montrose, because before I was just looking at him like a coward, like how could you just be this way? But now I'm just like, it's a wonder you didn't kill yourself.
Yeah. And I agree. Basically, I agree. I was surprised at, how they made Tulsa look and everything. And I was excited. As if I was there, I was excited to like, but I just was like, wait, it's so little, it's such a taste and such a tease. And I'm like, we should be able to enjoy that. And that was a letdown that we didn't get to enjoy it. And me, I didn't need to see all of this to feel sympathy for Montrose. I felt sympathy for him already, because I could imagine, I don't know, I'm imaginative. I can imagine all the things he had to experience, because I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of different people and their experiences. So I'm like, I didn't really need to see that. Maybe other people needed to see that to have sympathy for him. I didn't need to see that. So I wish that time would have been replaced with like us learning more about Tulsa, or just seeing them experience Tulsa. Like spend a few days in Tulsa, spend a few days with his family, with his grandmother and his mother. Like we should have spent time with his mother, him spending like a day or two, like just talking to her, seeing how she lived, going to her favorite store, bookstore, whatever it is. Like I think we should have been able to see more of that. And but Montrose's story needs to be told. Everyone's story needs to be told, but I felt like the story of Tulsa is the bigger picture, and I felt like that was kind of minimized. So yeah. Now, as we conclude this week's episode, I just want to thank the Anarkist for joining with me today. The last question I have for you is, what is your prediction for episode 10? It's called Full Circle. Hopefully it comes full circle and it makes sense. What do you have any prediction? What is your prediction?
Like I said, I don't want to try to predict too many things. I don't know exactly where they're gonna go. Hopefully they do tie in a lot of loose ends, because this doesn't look like they were just gonna like make a whole bunch of seasons of it. It just seemed like they just wanted to do one thing about Lovecraft Country and try to wrap it up, even though they veered off the book multiple times. As I'm told, I didn't read the book. I didn't read Mark Ruff's book. And with Lovecraft, you can just write on his monster. So, but anyway, I don't know. Prediction is maybe Ruby is going to have to make some sort of decision, because she does seem to flip-flop between, am I with Christina? Am I really down with the family, with Letitia's family, and wanting them to succeed? I'm hoping to have some sort of influence by Uncle George. I'm not saying maybe he's going to come back or whatever, but hopefully he does influence. Hopefully he does his influence in some way. And like I said, I'm interested, like you said, to see how G.I. ties into this. Maybe she'll come back around and save the day, being that she is a Kumiho spirit, and maybe I don't know. Maybe she can come back, and the last person soul she can grab is Christina's ass. But anyway, I don't know what really is going to happen, but obviously it's going to tie into whether Atticus gets ritualistically sacrificed or not, whether Christina is going to be immortal or not, whether the family's going to go back to normal or not. So I guess that's some stuff I can see maybe happening.
Yeah, for me, maybe Christina really isn't Christina, and she's really her father Samuel playing everybody. No, I don't know.
If they did that, I'm gonna throw my laptop like.
Give me a noise. No, like I don't know that reference, but so I will say, like, for me, I don't know why. Like sometimes I'm really good at guessing stories, because I have so many, like, I don't know, I'm an artist, so I'm always thinking of what could happen and stuff. And so for me, I think Ruby's gonna die for some reason. I don't know why. I just feel like maybe she's gonna die. She's gonna sacrifice herself. I think Christina has been playing her this whole time, and she's either gonna die willingly, or when she consumed her blood in the beginning, when she was drinking her blood as William when they first made out, maybe she was sampling her blood for later. So I think that I would love for Uncle George to come back. I really haven't given that much thought, but I would love for him to come back. I think that Hippolyta is going to do some super power hero stuff. Um, I would love for them to make it like a 90-minute show instead of a 45-minute show. But yeah, other than that, full circle, it sounds like they're trying to bring everything together, which means GI has to be present. I don't know if GI is going to be the one to take down Christina after she's immortal because she's a spirit. Like she has a spirit monster inside of herself, so maybe she can't die, which means she can kill Christina if she's, I don't know, she couldn't kill Christina if she's immortal, but I think that Christina may succeed in this ritual thing that's going on, and someone's going to have to reverse that, or someone's going to have to be more powerful, and maybe Hippolyta, with her 200 years of knowledge that she gained from the multi-universe, is going to have to harness her power with the bloodline of Atticus and the spirit self of GI to, you know, take down Christina. I think Christina is going to really let us know who she really is, what her true intentions are, and how she played everybody. I think maybe we'll see a rewind of stuff that we didn't notice in the other episodes that says like, okay, this happened because of this, and this happened. You guys can pay attention to this, and this is how Christina was really tying all these different knots together. She is definitely the master manipulator. She's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. I don't know how it's going to all end. Maybe Letitia's baby will be born, maybe not. Or hopefully she doesn't die. Hopefully Christina doesn't need Letty's baby. I have no idea.
Yeah, that was pretty detailed. Let me find out that they hired you as a writer on this show. Let me find out.
They should. I have a lot of, because I'm really good at guessing things, and also I just be going deep with stuff. And I mean, I'll be the type of person in a writer room like, what about this? And what about that? And what if he tied this into this? I'll be having them in there all day.
Oh, Montreal Bond said, I think Ruby is playing Christina. Remember, her mother is a hustler. So does she mean like she's just playing her, or is she just like she's actually becoming Christina? I don't know.
Maybe I think what they're trying to say, and I don't know, Montreal Bond. I think maybe they're trying to say that she's making Christina think that she's interested in her, and she's not really. She's playing her to get what she wants. Oh. I could see that being another way that it goes, like that she's
because really tie in the mother. Said the mother was a hustler. They mentioned that the mother was a hustler. So maybe she is. That would make sense,
and that was a powerful scene. That would reclaim her power though, because right now she looked like a simp. She looks like so weak in this show, Ruby, and that's not how her personality has been. So I'm like, if she has just been playing Christina this whole time, and then she's going to have a strong comeback, that would be that would be saving her character and saving just saving her character. Because right now I'm like, oh, like.
So thank you for that, Montreal Bond. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Montreal Bond. So I don't, like I said, all of that randomness was my prediction. Who knows if anything is going to stick to the wall? Throwing spaghetti at the wall. Who knows what's going to stick? But I just want to thank the Anarkist for this review. This is review of episode 9 of Lovecraft Country. Review, decoding, and reaction of Lovecraft Country episode Rewind 1921. It's episode 9. Thank you so much, you all, for everyone who has tuned in. Make sure you go and subscribe and like this video on my channel, Almedia Exum, as well as on the Anarkist's channel. Like, subscribe, give us your thoughts below, and we'll comment. And just remember to go ahead and just buy some merch from the Anarkist. He has awesome merch on his site, on his website, and in his channel. He does a lot of great content on his channel, so please make sure to tune in. I am Almedia Exum. Make sure to, like I said, like and subscribe. If you're interested in motivational videos, you can check out videos, my Happy Life Day motivational podcast. And I just want to say to you all, make sure to have a happy life day. The Anarkist, please close us out.
All right. Lastly, of course, this is being sponsored by My Personal Detail. Go to mpdetail.com and also stop by Instagram, My Personal Detail on Instagram and on Facebook, like the Facebook. You feel me? They got a lot of good information too. Just like Almedia said, go to her channel, like it, and subscribe. She got a lot of good motivational. Of course, she got her My Happy Life podcast, or Happy Life podcast. What's Almedia?
Happy Life Day. Motivation.
Happy Life Day motivation. So a lot of motivational content, a lot of vegan content. So you guys need to go over there if that's what you're into. Of course, check out the Anarkist podcast happening tomorrow. All the real truth seekers understand that. But yeah, like she said, check out the merch, like this video, and come back we're going to do the very last episode, the review of episode 10. Should be interesting. And hopefully everybody joins us, man. Peace and love to every single one of y'all, man. Hopefully y'all have a good night.
Thanks. Peace.
Peace.